Hey everybody, Linda from Let's Talk Prepping. And what I'd like to do is look at some of the headlines from the past week and see how they might affect your life. What's happening in the world and the US and what it means to you, how you can prepare for what's coming and what's happening in the world. And at the very end, we're going to look at a state that's going to close coal generating plant and go to all renewable energy. And the only problem is that the renewable energy is not ready yet. So what are these people going to do? So we're going to look at all the headlines and see how they affect you. So let's start looking right now. Let's start off with this New York Post article. My family of 6 lives in a tool shed. Use a bucket as a toilet and love it. You know, with the inflation and the high cost of food, energy, rents, um, electric, gas, just everything going up, people can't afford their rent anymore. So these people downsized, and the family of 6 moved into a 500 square foot tool shed. And now it doesn't tell us where this is located, but if you go down and you read the rest of this, these people moved into a shed and they put it on their parents' lot. And then this young girl, moved into a shed in her parents' backyard so she wouldn't have to live in a apartment. So all these people are living in sheds now, and it is becoming the thing. And I had never heard of this. On my last video, I mentioned it. So you might want to read this, New York Post. And then we go over here for the Federalist Papers. BMW issues warning. Park these electric vehicles outside. Don't drive or charge them, as they could catch fire. So we have a warning that they could catch fire and to be careful, and yet they want us all to go and buy these electric vehicles. So what does this mean? This means if you buy your electric vehicle, you can't even drive it. And here's another one. This is from the Federalist Papers again. Orwellian nightmare caught on tape. Veteran shocked to be arrested for causing anxiety. And this is in the UK, the United Kingdom, and it began with a tweet. And this Army veteran was handcuffed and loaded into the back of a patrol car. And he was arrested after he retweeted a post on Twitter that made another person anxious. So think about that. All he did was retweet a post on Twitter and it made someone anxious. So he was, someone has been caused anxiety based on your social media posts. That's why you're being arrested. Now, this is in the UK, and those of you living in the US say, oh, it'll never happen here. But believe me, it is starting to happen here. Think what would happen if, based on just something you texted on your phone, you shared in an email, you shared on YouTube, you shared on Twitter, you shared anywhere, and they decided that it caused anxiety to someone else and you're arrested. And here's from SHTF plan. Think tank warns of astronomical inflation with no respite. He says, sadly, time is running out. A central bank digital currency fully controlled by those in power over the slaves is the end game and completely necessary in order to keep humans under constant surveillance. Central bank digital currencies are coming. What will the consequences be? So this is an astronomical inflation. If you go through here, he talks a little bit about inflation. Speaking of inflation, if you go to the New York Post, beef prices are poised for a surge that could last years, experts say. And the problem is that the severe drought across the western U.S. forces mass cattle slaughters, and a natural disaster could keep supplies tight for years. So they're already trying to get rid of meat, and if this is happening, there's going to be less and less meat in the supply chain, and things are just going to just be so expensive that even if there is any meat, you're not going to be able to afford it. The problem is that ranchers can't sustain all the cows and steers in their herds as grasslands have dried up and the worst drought conditions in a decade. In June 2000, Kansas cattle dropped dead from heat stress. So we have this, and of course, some people are saying that the weather is being manipulated, and that's why we're having these droughts and everything. I have no idea if that's true or not, but if you're a meat eater, you might want to try getting some canned meat and store it for the long term. And this is from News Target. War on cash. Israel strictly regulates cash payments to curb financial crimes. And they won't let you pay in cash for anything over $1,785. That's not much. So if you go to buy something that's $2,000, no way you can pay in cash. So think what this means. You're saying, again, that's not the U.S., that's Israel. That's true, but what happens in other countries is going to come here if they find that it'll work in the other countries. Think about anything you pay cash for, and if you were no longer allowed to pay for it in cash. And News Nation, this is newsnationnow.com. Ground beef prices surge as farmers sell off cattle herds. This article is just a little bit more on what we just talked about, beef prices going up. And the USDA says that it's seen a huge number of female cattle sent to the feedlots, which means there's a lot of supply right now, but not for long. So if there's a supply right now, what happens is you say, oh, look, beef prices are coming down because there's a glut of beef. But how long will it take to use that up? And then there's not going to be any beef, or the prices are going to be so high that you won't be able to afford it. And this is the GreatGameIndia.com. GreatGameIndia.com. It's a journal on geopolitics and international relations. Spain bans starting your AC to save energy. So that's going to be happening all over. You're going to be told there's not enough energy, so don't start your AC. Of course, what does that mean for your electric vehicle? You're not going to be able to plug that in either, because that's going to take a lot more electric than an AC. And Walmart is laying off workers. And so is Amazon. And this is the economic collapse. But if you just put that into a Yahoo or Google search, Walmart laying off, you'll see how many are being laid off. Now, the one I really wanted to get to is this one in Hawaii. Hawaiian Electric's ambitious plan to quit using coal is a moon mission. And this is Honolulu Civil Beat. And it talks about how they're going to close the coal plant and have renewable energy. And I want you to go to Hawaii Prepper Network 808. She lives in Hawaii, and she just did a really great video on closing the plant and how they're not going to have electric and the renewable energy is not ready yet, and they're already asking people to cut back on electric, and what's going to happen when the coal plant actually closes and there's no more electric. And again, you're saying, oh, that's Hawaii. That's sort of like California. It's not going to happen. But you know, if they can push it in Hawaii and nobody protests, they're going to try to push it everywhere. And if you look down here a little bit, it says under Hawaiian law, 100% of electricity sold in the state must be produced from renewable sources by 2045. So please go to Hawaii Preppers Network 808 and check out her video. And this is from Gizmodo, gizmodo.com. Hawaii gets its last shipment of coal ever. The coal-fired plant will close in September, and they're going to be using renewable energy, but as the Hawaiian Prepper says, it's not ready yet. There is no renewable energy to use. So check her out. And these are just some of the headlines that we've seen in the last week. And actually, there were so many, I had to sift through and pick some and eliminate some others for you. But I want you to think about these and see if they're going to affect you. If you think they're going to affect you in the long run, maybe you should start preparing now. Now, see, if Hawaii's getting their last shipment of coal ever and they're closing the plant, even though they're not ready for renewable energy, don't you think that the other states are going to say, hey, it worked in Hawaii? Nobody's complaining, nobody's protesting. Oh, we can squash these protesters, so let's do it in these other states. So maybe you might want to pick up a solar generator, maybe a gas generator. Just think about these things. And those people who are living in the shed, I wonder what happens. Most towns, they don't allow you to live in a shed. They're going to allow all the homeless people to live, and they're not going to stop them from living on the street. But you can bet they're going to come after you if you live in a shed. So think about all these things. Think about beef prices going up. Think about them killing off the beef cattle because of the drought and everything else. And how and them trying to push electric vehicles on you, and then you can't even charge them because they catch on fire. Please leave comments if you have any comments on any of these headlines. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and thank you so much for watching.